the attributes from CBD do more to help than you would ever understand and know. And when it does that for infants, as a mother, would you ever think that marijuana would be something that would help your child in their everyday life?
I have never thought about it until when it was made known through Charlotte, because when you're a parent, you become very desperate. It's not something that I would ever thought of putting my daughter on, because when you hear the word marijuana, you're like, okay, I don't think I want to give that to my child.
Yes.
But there's a lot of studies that's being done, and the CBD has less of the effect of the hallucinate, for you to feel high. The
Oh,
THC is that's the strand that makes you
yes.
give you that
CBD.
high and potentially
CBD has no high.
addictive. But the CBD, according to studies, they says no, it helps a lot of children with epilepsy.
Yes.
So
Epilepsy.
with
Yes.
the family, with the Charlotte Ward, I think it's the Fijis, when they came out, I mean, you imagine the father who was a military guy who never thought of probably potentially to give that to the daughter, but to see the result, it's rewarding. It's refreshing to know that, okay, there is potentially a natural form that can potentially help our children with epilepsy
Listen,
or our children with seizures.
that's great to hear because I totally understand what you're saying and what you're going through because I have Haitian parents and I have used different types of medicinal marijuana to help in my ailments and it has done wonders and they are not positive proponents of marijuana by far but have had a alteration in their thoughts when it comes to what the plant can actually do sometimes, but then they'll go back to the Seventh Day Adventist thinking and loving about use for luau and it'll be better for you. But that is something that a process that we actually all have to go through in learning that there are other alternatives to um, ailments, and sometimes just taking the pills or the shots that have been made in the laboratory are not the key. But it's great to see that, great to hear and see that you were doing that. But um, I'm sure Socra might have told you, but the premise of our show is we talk about overcoming adversity and strength and going through it and understanding that everything that we go through, our trials and tribulations, our failures, are all things to help us grow in the end. Um, what was the one main thing, if I had to ask you, what is your superpower as a being and doing all of what you do as a caregiver, a mother, everything to your family and need? What would you say is your superpower?
My superpower, I would say, it came from the roots of my parents. They are the thread, like we said earlier, the three L's. L'église, l'école, la caille. This sums up the L's of what love is all about. And, once you put God first in your life, anything is possible. And my
Mm.
parents have embedded, the church, going to church, and, knowing the Lord. That's what's giving my strength. And seeing my parents sacrifice for us to have a better education and the love of home. Without that, I don't think I could have the superpower with God, which is on the top layer of the umbrella. I would just say the pyramid is at the top where it encircles you, embodies you. And this is where I get my super strength from.
Insightful. And Socra, if I ask you the same question, what is your superpower?
Yeah, I think I had asked myself that question. Who made me? What made me? Is it the fact that I'm Haitian and and being an immigrant and coming into this country, that I do believe that there's absolutely nothing wrong with my brain and that there is nothing that I cannot do. And the only limitation is really myself, as in if I choose to be a rocket science, that I am able to be a rocket science. And then I thought about um, the church. And when I say the church, I'm talking about a relationship with the Lord. I'm talking about knowing who God is. I'm talking about when you read the Bible and God says, I am with you in the midst, I am with you in the high parts, and I'm with you in the low parts. I'm talking about knowing that. And I had to ask myself, and then when it comes to it, I had to say, there are many Haitians who don't think like me. Why do I think the way that I think? And I would say number one would have to be because of God and that relationship. That idea of if you're going to be a Christian, who are you trying to be fake with? Hello? God can see everything.
Huh.
So I would say the God is number one. Second, I would say my family. And because they were examples to me, where they didn't backbite people, and my family included not just my blood. I attended Miami Temple. Though, wow, those families really helped make who I am. As we would watch the Aristides, how they would interact with another, the Cyrils, how they interacted with one another, your parents. Um, we think of even non-Haitians, the Petersons. We think about Scott Dehart. When we think about all of those, it really kind of makes us that community, that village. So the village of Miami Temple made me. Then when I moved to Massachusetts, I think about the the honorees. I think about the Laguerres and these people who were there. They were pillars to show us. I think about then I think about those friendships that my father had while he was in Haiti as an immigrant. When you come up here and the same people as a, I think I remember that person. Oh yeah, that person used to come and exercise with my father in the house. The vieux. I think about them and I see their children and Anselm, these things. And then those the love that you have and how you're going to apply these things, because you can still have these things and be a suck of a person, or you can see that, wow, there's a need, and oh, look at this, I have the skills to take care of that need. If it's a friend who's going through a difficult time and you say, oh, okay, I have a few minutes, I can just listen. um, if you my motto on Facebook is to meet the needs of the people that are around you. That's it. I'm not saying be God. There's a lot of problems out there, and it surely can be depressing.
Huh.
Everybody has problems.
But it's how you bounce back from them is the key. And both of you are inspirations, and just briefly of stuff that I've heard of you, Josie, and we just heard one part, and that one part is in itself something. What other things have you gone through of understanding what a caregiver means, what it means to be a caregiver?
What it means to be a caregiver is I find it rewarding. It's nurturing. You have to you have to go through different milestones. I mean, for me, it was something that was new because being a Haitian community, we haven't really, I haven't really been exposed to special needs children because most of my surrounding, every kid used to play, they never had, illness to that capacity. So I've never seen a child with epilepsy before, having a seizure. I never exposed as a child, ever seen one. Even as a nurse, ever seen a patient with a seizure.
Wow.
But it was like I have to learn to deal with it from day to day. And even with the family, it's something new to all of us.
If I could,
So,
if I could say something, Josie, excuse me. I as I'm listening to Josie, I want you to the listeners to understand. When her daughter has a seizure, she turns blue. It's as though that she is. It looks like you completely feel out of control, and you're like, what am I going to do? It is very scary. It's not a little seizure. Then after the seizure, she is so exhausted that she just passes out practically. And that in itself is highly intimidating.
Yes, it has to be. It has to be.
yeah, even with my mother, it impacts every single member of the family. Even with my mother, when she, like, let's say when my daughter dropped, I think my mom's heart was going to just say, whoop, like, you could see the reaction. It's really, it strengthened us in a sense. It's really, because you have to overcome certain fears like
Yes.
of the unknown, and then it's any given moment, you don't know when it's going to happen. When it comes, this is why I said it's not everyone. Until you witness someone with a seizure, then within yourself you can know whether you'll be able to handle it. Because not everyone can handle that. Because every day may not be the same. So you have to know your inner strength. You have to make sure you know whether you are capable of dealing with that. Not everyone can.
Yeah.
Some people,
Some people just freak
they
out.
will just freeze. Like,
Yeah.
they will freeze automatically.
I was
And
having
really
seizures earlier on. I think 2016. I was having sporadic seizures, and the reactions of some of my cousins, and I remember one of my uncles' reaction was like, "Oh no, I can't touch him now." Um, it is one of those things that you don't know until you go through. And I didn't even know what I was going through were seizures. All I know is they were like, okay, you need this gabapentin and this carbamazepine, and you need to. And come to find out, those things made it worse for me to have more frequent seizures. So it's you're absolutely correct. A lot of things you don't actually know until it actually hits you.
exactly.
Until it actually hits you, and a lot of times we really don't know about chronic illnesses. For example, I knew nothing about MS as I really should have known. For example, until it really hit me. But then it hit me again when my older cousin was diagnosed with MS, Mia, and then my sister gets diagnosed with MS. So it was bam, bam, bam for our family. And of course, Haitian people sometimes don't, it takes them a while to believe in exactly what's going on medically with certain illnesses, especially if they don't really know the illness. But I have to commend you, Queen, for doing what you're doing and standing tall and going through it, because many haven't been able to go through it and oftentimes give up. And the ones that hurt in the end are the helpless children or the helpless individuals that really don't have any other way but to depend on the loved ones that brought them into the world. So it's a great thing to know that. What would you say a to parents that are going through what you're going through and finding out, like when you found out, what would you say to them that want to give up, that may be frustrated, maybe unsure of what to do? What are those things that you would say to them if you could?
Well, once you find out what's your child's condition, it is important for you to read upon it, research upon it, so that way you know exactly how to handle the situation. There are times like 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning when she doesn't sleep at all, and I'm like, oh, I need to sleep, I cannot sleep. It is very difficult at times when you sleep deprived. So this is when you're going to know for sure whether you're able to handle it or not. Because you have to know your limits. You have to know your inner strength. And there are times where I'm like, oh my goodness, when she gets older, Lord, if this continues, it crossed my mind whether if I need to put her in an institution. And this would be the last thing on my mind. But there are times I'll have flashes of that. And I have not come to terms with it. But sometimes you may not have that choice. I may come to terms with it when I'm facing that bridge. But I have to think about all the possibilities. Because those children, they're very strong. Not every parent can handle the stress of when they are having the seizures by themselves. It's not easy at times. As they get older, they get stronger. I'm able to handle her now because she's petite, she's small, and it's fine. But for other children that may have the same condition as my daughter, they may be twice her size. As a parent, how would you handle that?
Right.
And this is, and no parent would want to be in a position where they have to give a child to an institution. But
Yep.
this is the reality of it. And it's like, where do you draw the line?
So are those the options that you have as a parent with a child that has epilepsy? Do they grow out
With
of it?
epilepsy, or they may grow out of it, they may not grow out of it. I have to look at all the possibilities.
Okay.
You have to look at it with an open mind. You have to be able to, willing to try different avenues. You have to be able to open to have strangers coming into your house to look after your child. Not many parents are able to do that. So there's a lot of services out there, but a lot of parents may not be open to it.
Exactly.
Especially when it comes to Haitian family. Haitian family, a lot of us are close-knit, and sometimes we do not allow strangers to come into our house like
You
that.
don't want anybody in your house. You don't want anybody looking at your stuff, knowing how you treat your. You don't want anybody looking at your plants. You don't want anyone looking at your bocal with a bunch of stuff inside.
Yeah, so these are things that, as it's a good thing that we're having communication with that, but these are things parents may not even think about when you have a special needs child. You have to be able to open yourself to so many different things. And it's a learning process. It is truly a learning process. Being a parent with a special needs child, you have to come out of your comfort zone.
Now, when you come in doing all this, and this is a question to both of you, when do you find? And I'll ask you. I'll tell you why I'm asking this, because my mother, my sister had surgery recently, and my mother's been assisting my brother. Meanwhile, but when is the time of rest for a caregiver? Because my mother hasn't rested at all, because she goes from one sick kid to the next sick kid, and the next sick cousin, and we had 2 family members pass away, and it's when do you find time for you as a caregiver to rest or regroup, or do you at all?
I can literally say I don't because I just keep it going and going and going. There's something called respite care, which having someone, like I'm saying, having someone to come, just that way you can have some leisure time. But you have to be open to that. It's for me, I'm just not coming to terms because caretaker burnout, it is something that needs to be recognized. And even though you don't have a child with special needs, but you're going to have elderly parents. You may have to take care of them. So this is something with elderly, you have to take care of your parents. So you're going to have caretaker burnout. And this is going to be the next, I think, hopefully, they can make more awareness of that. They should have resources for that. Because I've seen some of my friends, some of my coworkers, they have children with special needs. And as nurses, a lot of the time we tend to care for individuals. We take less care of ourselves. We don't.
Wait,
and
wait.
I can tell you, I do not take the time for myself.
Say that. Say that again, please. You do what?
I do not take the time for myself.
Okay. Now,
Truly don't.
let me ask you this. How can you expect to do the foreshadowing that you're doing about your daughter, for example, about her future and what you're going to be doing and how you're going to be assisting? How can you do any of that and not be assured of how you are doing physically, mentally, and spiritually? Because you could feel that way spiritually, but mentally and physically not be there in tune. And, so how do you not even do that? And I understand it's hard because you may feel like there's no time, but what I'm saying is you need to find time, because it's just like if the plane is going down, you have to put the gas mask on who first, because you never know how everything else will go. And it's the same way of trying to help someone that's drowning. You have to make sure that you're able to swim in order to help the next individual. And I say this to my mother. I used to say it to my sister all the time. If you burn yourself out, I'm afraid. And they would say, well, why are you afraid? I'm like, then it's like, I'm not going to know who I'm going to have to help me out. You understand what I'm saying? You've got to do it because the self-preservation of yourself is still preserving for your family in another way as well. So try to find that time to be selfish, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, whatever it may be. But take that time. Maybe it's early in the morning or late at night. But yes, because you don't want to run yourself into the ground where you're not able to do because you're burnt out. I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but
it makes a lot of sense. It's for me, it is reality when I hear people, especially you raising the question. It just kind of, I have to take a step back and say, okay, but I just don't know how to come to terms with that, because you're constantly worrying. You're constantly like, when your child is sick, that's when the body feels it also, because you feel like you're also getting. It's part of you just feel like, oh my goodness. When your child is sick, they say the parents sometimes get sick too, because it's like you're thinking about them and you want what's best for them, and you just suppress your own needs.
Yes.
I don't know if that makes any sense, because it's hard to explain.
Listen, I hear it all the time. We have Haitian parents. Oui, j'entraille moi. Yes, I feel. Yes, I totally understand it. But what I don't feel like what you guys get to feel is actually your own children's pain. That I have godchildren, now, and that to me is painful already. So I couldn't even imagine. Um, wow, it's something, and I have to commend. Just I watch mothers that have kids that have colds and that are they're beneath themselves. They don't know what they're gonna do. A kid has a cold, and and then you'll see some other parents just sitting there. Some other mothers are looking at them like smiling and laughing, like, don't worry, that's nothing. That's nothing. Just wait till other things come. That's just a starting point to get you ready for what may or may not come. But it is a starting point as much as anything else. Socra?
And one other thing that I need to point out
Yes.
also is just that a lot of parents may not know because it just been going through the school system, and it's important to know that when the child turns 18, you need legal guardianship. I'm like, really? I'm like, what? So this is something that we need to talk about because it's a lot of Haitian parents, a lot of parents may not know that when you have a special needs children, a child, you have to think of getting legal guardianship. When they turn 18, you have to start making the paperwork. Because then the kids, then you won't be able to make decisions for your own child.
And they explain that, and having legal guardianship means that once they turn 18, you are still responsible
you are
for
still the
them.
legal decision maker for them, yes.
Okay.
If you don't have the legal guardianship, then the state can dictate, okay, well, they will determine what's best for the child, not the parent.
And that could go on till, for example, Britney Spears' father has legal guardianship of her still, and that's what they're battling through right now. People did not know she has mental health issues, but if done correctly, just like you're saying, you should do that earlier than later because you never know what's going to happen, and you don't want to be in the case where your child all of a sudden is going through something. They have bad seizures or bad chronic illness, and lo and behold, they get belligerent, get 18, and disappear, and next thing you know, they are a harm to themselves more than anything else. That's hard.
Yes, so it's a lot of things that are involved that being a caretaker that I'm learning for myself. It's legally, there's a lot of homework that a parent has to do. You have to be connected, and you also have to be aware because you don't want to wait until the child is 18. Then they can, they can legally put the child in an institution, and you don't have a choice.
Really? No matter what?
Yes.
If you aren't,
no matter what.
If you aren't,
if you don't have the legal guardianship of your child,
they take custody of your child.
Yes.
Wow. And at that time,
I was like, oh wow.
And then they put them into a facility, a rehab facility,
They can put them in a facility.
Wow.
And parents also have to know there are a waiting list, even for institutions to put special needs children.
Now, is this in New York? There's a waiting list?
I think it's in New York. Yes, there is a waiting list.
Wow.
There is a waiting list. So it's some parents, they have to start early, put them on the list because you never know because they're all elderly parents. I'm not going to be younger forever. Eventually, I'm getting older. So what happens if I be ill, sick? These are, you have to put other
parameters in.
Yes. Parameters, and not only that, you also have to designate a person if something happens to you. It's legally, it's really an eye-opener for me because there's a lot of different legal aspects that you have to know what to do, how to direct planning for the future for your children with special needs.
And I'm not saying you're not a legal a lawyer or anything like that, but when would you say is the best time to start doing that?
When the child is like 17, because they have to do it before 18. You cannot do it before. So even when you have, there's a lot of stuff you have to get a trust under their name. So in case if something happens to you, the trustee, it's like I'm learning as she's getting older. There's a lot of procedures that I have to implement.
Wow.
And it's time consuming, and there are paperwork that I kind of like suppress because I'm like, I don't want to relieve, what happened before, and you just have to put all that in writing. It can be very difficult. So it's good to have a good case manager to work with you, so that way you can channel what's right for your child when you're planning for the future for them. So as for me, being a mother, all of what's available, I have to take it into heart, so that way I can plan for her future.
Wow. And that is incredible. Your story, your drive, it's man, appreciated. We give you the praise and honor of being diligent and staying steadfast and doing what mothers do, which is sticking by your child and finding the best way for them to actually navigate through this crazy marathon of life. Socra, any lasting words there?
I would like to thank Josie for taking the time and to be able to share with us.
Yes, on short notice too, also.
Yes, and Josie, and today, I would like to let the listeners know, because of this, Josie works only weekends, so that during the week she's able to be there. And this weekend, because of the death of her father, she's actually off this weekend. So I thank you for, in the moment of your mourning, that you're able to share with us. And listeners, if you have any questions that you wanted to share with Josie, you can leave comments for us, and I can always share it with her. And we are hoping, Josie, if you are off on a Sunday, that you would let us know. We would gladly
Please.
Love to have you back.
Okay, thank you.
Because I wanted to share with the listeners that there's so much of the story. Can you just share with us one more thing? Why is it that you give your daughter the diet that you give her? Can you share that with us, please?
Okay, initially we had started with the ketogenic diet. The ketogenic diet did not work for her because actually it made her seizure worse. So right now we have her on a low glycemic diet. And being Haitian, eating rice is a staple. But I had to refrain her from that. And, I have, my mother and some friends that say, well, why don't you try giving her this? I'm like, no. Her carbohydrate has to be with a certain amount, like 60 grams of carbohydrate per day. So you know how difficult that can be to prepare a meal for her. So I had to look for labels, ingredients, the size, the serving, all that. I had to make sure that I had the right amount of carbohydrate per day. So with this diet, the low glycemic diet, which really helps her, her behaviors is